Hi guys, and welcome to a new video from me. We've had the 1.22 patch for a while, and we've had the World of Tanks rebalances to these maps, rebalances to these maps. So, and I've probably played most of them, and I'm going to give you a heads up on what I think of these map changes. So there we have it. This is the map, Mountain Pass. First of the maps I'm going to look at. Mountain Pass in all its glory. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to go through Wargaming's blurb and their map changes on the interactive map. I'm then going to tell you what I think about each of these map changes. And then I'm going to tell you what I think Wargaming haven't fixed and what they should have fixed. Here we are, Wargaming's, this is from the Wargaming blurb. And let's have a look what they say about Mountain Pass. Mountain Pass received multiple augmentations to improve the quality of life for both sides. Guys, don't you feel that your quality of life has been significantly improved thanks to these map changes? Me neither. The zone for heavily armoured vehicle clashes was expanded and refurbished. A lot of lines of fire that previously allowed for hitting vehicles en route to positions at the start of the battle were blocked. The hill in the south, often used by snipers and arty, was significantly reshaped, and it is no longer possible to shoot at the bridge from the top of its northern counterparts. Right then, here's the interactive map. Let's look at these changes. In Square H8, the height of the hill has been reduced so that the lowermost team can take up anti-tank positions faster and more efficiently. The firing for position for attacks along the 9th and 0 verticals has been removed. 2. Immediate covers have been added to the intersection of squares F9 and F10 and E9 and E0, which will allow vehicles to advance to the lowermost base capture circle more safely. 3. Balconies and covers have been added to square E9 to allow for firing from medium and long distances. 4. Squares C7, D7 and D8, the collision zone for heavy tanks has undergone a complete overhaul. The terrain has been changed, new covers have been created, and finally the play area has been expanded. 5. Squares H6, H7, part of the mountain has been removed and cleared of vegetation to open a small chamber for those holding the anti-tank positions. Balcony square in H8. So the chamber can attack enemy vehicles in squares J3 to J4, just like in the uppermost base. 6. Squares G5 to G6, the balcony and its surrounding area has been redesigned. This helped reduce the zone of engagement and the vehicles coming from the lowermost base and allowed new medium-range firing positions to be added. 7. Squares D2, E3, the balcony and its surrounding areas have been redesigned. This helped reduce the zone of engagement with vehicles coming from the uppermost base and allowed new medium-range firing positions to be added. 8. Square E2, G1, the play area has been expanded. The balcony and intermediate covers have been added, enabling players from the lowermost team to attack more efficiently. 9. New covers that have been added to the F4 square. 10. In the D4 square, a rock has been added to block the attack along the bridge from the anti-tank firing position in square C3. 11. Squares E6 to F7, the bridge approach has been redesigned for the lowermost team. Play area has been expanded and better positions have been added for firing along the bridge from medium and long distances. 12. Squares H1 to K4, the collision zone has been revamped. The balcony squares in H3 to H4 have been shifted towards the uppermost team in squares F3 and G3. You notice something interesting about this interactive map? It talks using H1 K4, but there's actually no indication which way the axes go. It's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. They kind of assume you know that. Anyway. But it's just like, again, this is Wargaming being crap. It's literally Wargaming being crap. They can't even get an interactive map right. Sorry. In squares H1 to K4, the collision zones have been revamped. The balcony in squares H3 to H4 has shifted towards the uppermost team in squares F3 and G3. Part of the mountain was removed for broader firing options from the balcony. Both teams have been given new positions and shelter for medium-range combat. The time of approach to the collision zone has been rebalanced. 13. At the junction of squares A1 and A2, vegetation has been added for players from the uppermost team. Their positions for base defence have been improved to mirror those of the lowermost team. I don't think they have been changed to mirror those of the Learners team, but we'll go into that later. And so this is what I think of these map changes and whether I think they're good or not. So one, the reduction of the height of this hill. This is actually, as far as I can tell, a good change. The hill, as it was, had firing positions down the 9 and 0 lines, across the H line, into the middle, and into the base, defending the base. So yeah, one, as far as I can tell, is a good change. If we zoom into the position, and they've put rocks there, so you can't fire into the 0 and 9 lines. So they have actually, although you could probably maybe climb onto them. The only defensive fire positions now you've got are here, which are good enough. I mean, it was always good enough for you. There used to be a rock here, I believe, which has been removed. Ultimately, one is great. Two, adding rocks there and removing this bit. Fucking pointless. There was no need to have a rock there. You could maintain some sort of cover just by driving up this way. Adding a massive rock in the middle to add cover when you've already removed one of the major firing arcs by changing one, removing that rock is just a pointless change. Wargaming seemed to think that area here gave full control to the entry, and it didn't. You just got YOLO'd by 4 tanks coming down through the gap, through the glacier, and shooting you, and you just died. You couldn't. You sat there until you died. It didn't control anything. So yeah, that's a pointless change. Adding that rock. 3, again, pointless changes. There was plenty of cover in all of these areas, in both of these areas, in both of the 3 zones. Adding more rocks doesn't change anything. It just promotes camping. And this game does not need to promote camping any more than it does at the minute. Instead of now camping, you're going to be camping here and at the top. I mean, people already camped at the top anyway. The ridgeline was an adequate defense. You didn't need big rocks to hide behind if you knew how to use your tank and how to keep it hull down. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe people don't know how to get their tank hull down. Pointless additions. It's just going to encourage camping. 4. Well, this I'm actually not so sure about this. I think it could be a good change and it could be a bad change. It's certainly good because it adds cover from being shot at from the 12 balcony and the 9 area. If you pushed into the area around 4, you always got shot from either 9 or 12. Always. Because there was always enemy tanks there, or enemy tanks there. Get shot by friendly tanks. But there was always enemy tanks in 9 and 12 that would shoot at you. So always pushing into 4 was always a bit of a mistake, and you really could never do it. And then especially if they pushed into under the bridge, going into 4 was bad. So I'm not so sure it's going to work well with teams now camping more at 3. But, for 4, for mitigating damage from the middle, then it's a good change. So I'm in the middle with this one. So we're going to give this one a yellow. We're going to say, yeah, this could be okay. 5. Again, not so sure about this one. I don't know. It's going to encourage camping with TDs and mediums that think they're TDs, like the Char Future TD. This is just going to encourage camping. And it's kind of an equaliser because the balcony in the north base in C3 was actually a better balcony than the one area at 1. And if you noticed, C3 has had no changes apart from making it impossible to shoot the bridge from C3. But now we've got this area here. I mean, to be fair, you've got to come around to here to get up to it. So it's more designed for attackers than defenders. Again, it's just an area I'm not sure of. It could be better. I just don't know. at this moment in time. It could be better, it could be worse. So it gets the it gets the meh, it gets the yellow. It could be okay, an okay change. 6 and 7. Yes, these areas definitely needed to be reworked. Getting shot at the start of the game from a myriad of tanks on the other side of the map that just got there quicker than you was so boring. So boring. Number of tanks that just got sent back to the garage after 30 seconds, crossing 6 and 7. So, yes, these are good changes. They're definitely good changes. I like this. Well done, Wargaming. You've got one thing right so far on this map. 8. Again, a little balcony to help the attacking team. Maybe give them some cover. Help TDs or attacking mediums, possibly. Pushing. Again, it's one of these, I don't know, it may work. It might not work. There's similar kind of outcrops on other maps, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work. Initially, when Wargaming put them in, they tend to be a bit overpowered, and then Wargaming have to start removing bits of cover from them or adding new fire lanes to them. Again, this one could be one of those. It could be just too good to be true. But until I've played a few more games and hit this spot a bit more, to be honest, I never ever pushed up this corridor because it's one of the natural kill zones in the game. Now maybe it's not going to be so much of a kill zone, a bit more of a slugging match, but we'll just have to see. Play a few games at that spot. I've not gone up to that spot yet. I haven't touched this area, so for me, it's still got the could be okay, could be shit. We're just going to have to wait and see. 9. Yeah, again, another area where there was always plenty of cover there. For the only tanks that tended to dip into there were light tanks or medium tanks and heavy tanks in a late game push. There was always cover there. You know, there was the undulations and the ridges and the dips meant there was always enough cover. Tanks, you didn't need those 2 rocks adding. It's just, again, a pointless change. Except for light tanks driving around there, doing the EBRs, doing their wheelie dance of death. Might make that a bit more fun. So that's why I'm giving this a kind of meh change. I'm bordering on this being a pointless change, but it might just be fun to watch the wheelie tanks trying to drive around those rocks for like 5 minutes trying to shoot each other and fail. Again, we'll have to wait and see. 10. So Wargaming have changed it so the balcony at C3 can't shoot across the bridge. But they've also added it so that you now can't get shot from up there as you get to the corner. Again, you didn't need this change. That was a natural crossfire. You pushed across the bridge and you needed someone else to either come up at 7 to distract the TDs on the top or force them back or attract the attention of any tanks that were around the corner. Just doesn't seem like this change was needed. I've given it a yellow change because it probably will help pushing across the bridge and around the corner, but again, I just don't know. It seems a bit pointless to me. One of these ones that we're just going to have to wait and see. 11. Yeah, well, now this area was always quite contested. If you were in the northern spawn and managed to push a tank with a bouncy turret across the bridge and get into behind that rock, you could just do crazy damage from around there. And I've done that in my 121B. In my 121B game, that's what I did and ended up with nearly 8k damage. So that area kind of needed to be opened out a bit from the southern spawn perspective. I like that change. I think that will make it a lot better. It's not such an advantage for the northern spawn to push a tank across there now so quickly. 12. Now this area, yeah, this is like this change I don't think was necessary, but wasn't necessary, but it's actually good. It's created a bit of more of an area where you can brawl. The cover's nicer. You can dip and duck behind hills more. There's a bit more stuff to do. Sorry, there's a bit more things to play with. I actually like this change, but I didn't dislike how it was. So this is getting a good one, but wasn't actually necessary. 13. So I put this one as a good change because it adds more cover for the teams defending the northern base. but you've got limited fire arcs from where you are, so you're only literally defending down the two line. You can't sit up there and defend the A line. Not that you need to do that, because the A line's already a kill zone that you can just obliterate anything that drives down. So they've tried to make 13 like the corner in K0. Unfortunately, they haven't, because of the positioning of K0. They can't balance those two out. So yeah, that's my take on this map changes. So you're looking at that and you're thinking, well, that's overall that looks quite positive. You've only said that 2 areas are completely redundant, 2 lots of changes are completely shit. Everything else looks quite positive. Well, it does, but that's not taken into account the changes that Wargaming haven't made to this map, and the changes that Wargaming should have made to this map. So now I'm going to specifically talk about the kill zones that are in A1 to 5 and K0 to 4, or JK 0 to 4. These are ridiculously open kill zones. So if you're pushing in from the northern spawn along the Glacier Road, you get to that top and you suddenly come around the corner and you've got no cover. And all it takes is 1 or 2 tanks sat on the corner behind the base, and you just get farmed, especially if they're hull down turreted tanks that you can't bounce. And I've done this plenty of times. I've sat on the corner there in a hull down turreted, bouncy turret tank and just farmed tanks if they've tried to push along this line. It doesn't work. So these areas need cover, and Wargaming hasn't added that cover in. That's why A0 to 5. That's A0 to 5. It's the equivalent on the other side, but it's worse on the other side, because in K0, you've got a fucking impenetrable magic forest. All you do is park 2, 3 TDs, tanks with decent camo at the back of that forest, and as everyone drives up, they just get obliterated. Again, it's impossible to push into that unless you have got 6, 7 tanks to 2 or 3. And even then, there's a risk you're not going to do anything, because you just can't see these tanks that are shooting at you until you get right up to the edge of the forest. If they're fast firing or high alpha, you haven't got a chance. So you've got these 2 impenetrable kill zones in the base. This is why 3 and 2 are pointless changes, because they lead to areas where you can't progress. So the literal back road is now a pointless mess of anything. This forest needs to be reduced so that you can actually see the tanks in it. This road here needs to have cover added to it, so you don't just get farmed as you try and drive along 3 squares. The changes at 3 should have been certainly moved across. Certainly the northern changes for 3 shouldn't have been where they are. They should have been further across along that line there. And as I said, the simplest change here is just to thin out this forest, so it's not as densely populated with trees, so you can't hard 3 tanks at the back that can just farm the shit out of you all the time. Or give the attacking team, an attacking team, a way to get up here, so that they can actually come down on top of them, but then they're going to get crossfired from the hill. You're always going to have tanks on the hill crossfiring anyone who comes down. So ultimately, if you take A and B into account, I think this map, there's a lot of grey areas in what I think. There's a lot of changes that could actually turn out to be shit rather than good. And if that's the case, taking A and B into account as well, then this map is just going to get worse. It's going to encourage camping, and it's not going to encourage aggressive heavy tank play or aggressive medium tank counter play. I just think it's going to stagnate into one of those games where people go to their spot and that's all they ever do. I think the Glacier line, the ice road as the people call it, or the Glacier route, is now just totally redundant. It's totally redundant. People probably won't go there. Heavy tanks will go towards 12, medium tanks probably towards the bridge at 11 and 10, light tanks through the middle, and the back road will just get forgotten. And the only time the back road will ever come into play is late game, when teams are then trying to, outflank enemy teams and push in from 2 directions, which isn't a bad thing, but if the enemy team is camping in the forest at B, then good luck pushing them. Anyway, that's what I think. What do you think of these map changes on this map? Am I right? Am I wrong? You know, it's just my opinion. Am I glad Wargaming are making changes? Well, yes and no. They clearly don't understand what the problems are with these maps. They're making changes to areas that don't need to be changed, and they're ignoring areas that do need to be changed. Hopefully, looking at some of the other maps, we'll see more significant changes, but I'm not crossing my fingers and hoping for anything. Okay guys, thanks for watching this video. As you can see, I'm on Facebook as Bang Average Tanker, YouTube as Bang Average Tanker, you're here, you're watching me. I'm on Twitch as Bang Average Tanker 2 or 3 times a week, and I'm also on Twitter as Bang Average Tanker because I can't have Bang Average Tanker because it's too long. Or should I call it X now? I don't know, it's still Twitter to me, so there we go. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more content like this, hit the dangly dingly bell icon to subscribe. And once every 7 months when I release a new content, you'll be surprised and get a notification or some such nonsense. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again next time.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I rode a tank, held a general's rank, when the front lines rained and the teams just stank. Whoa! Pleased to meet ya. Don't you guess my name? Oh yeah. Oh, what's puzzling you is the nature of this game. Ha ha!